Hello and welcome to the Shiny Bees podcast, a podcast for those who like their knitting, comedy and yarn in equally large measures. I'm your host Jo Milmine and this is episode 57, Make It Fit, an interview with Amy Herzog.
I feel a need to laugh again with you, if that's alright. I need a drink.
Yarn in the City creates experiential, yarn-centric events for knitters and makers designed to bring people together through a shared love of craft. Yarn in the City organises the Great London Yarn Crawl, taking place on Saturday the 5th of September 2015. For more information and to book your tickets, go to www.yarninthecity.com today. Hello everybody and welcome to the show. Today is Tuesday the 28th of July. How are you all? I hope you're all well. Since last time I spoke to you, it feels like a long time. It's only been a week, but it feels much longer, weirdly. And I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm very glad to be back and chatting to you all again, and hope that your knitting has been progressing nicely and that the recent cold snap again in the middle of July has given you the opportunity to dig out a few of your hand knits and accessorise a little bit. I hope those of you who went along to Fibre East at the weekend had a good time. Thank you for everyone who's been putting pictures on Instagram so that I can have a look at all your purchases. I do love to do a little bit of purchase snooping. I like seeing what people have been buying and what they've been getting and what they've been knitting. So I've been enjoying Instagram, particularly for the last week. I do apologise if there's a slight bit of background noise in the intro for this episode. Most of the episode will be an interview and the background noise will be gone by then. Unfortunately, this person who appears to be trimming some grass or such like has been doing so for the last hour and a half, and I do want you to get your podcast today, so I'm just going to crack on and hope that it isn't too much of a distraction for you. So what else have we got in the show today for you? Well, I have a few quick little notices to give you, and then we're going to crack straight on into the interview. And I was delighted to have the opportunity to interview Amy Herzog for the show. So grab yourself a brew and I will crack on with your quick notices and then we can have a chat to Amy. So first up is the UK Podcasters Awards. There are only 3 days left to nominate your favourite knitting podcast, which is, of course, the Shiny Bees podcast, for a UK Podcasters Award. If you haven't had a chance so far, I know that it's a bit of a schlep to go and nominate someone, but I truly appreciate you taking the time to do so. And thank you so much to people who've actually left a review as well. It's really kind of you and I really do appreciate it, and I know your time is very precious, and it's really everyone that comes in, I just can't believe you've left me a review and it just makes me so happy. It really does make me smile and I do appreciate it. So if you have time, there's only 3 days left. If you could vote every day from now until Friday, I would actually love you forever. They will be announcing the finalists in mid-August, and I promise I will do something crazy and fun if I do get nominated for the finalists. But it's very easy to do. You nip on over to the UK Podcasters website and you click the nominate button and you can nominate the podcast. I will put a link in the show notes so you can go straight from the show notes over there, but also on my website, www.shinybees.com. In the top bar navigation, there is a tab called UK Podcasters Awards. And if you click on that and then click on the graphic, it will take you straight to the right page. So if you could do that for me, I would really appreciate it, because I'm dying to get Knitting Is Not Just for Nanas into some kind of Oscars-style acceptance speech. I promise I'll wear head-to-toe knitwear if you want for the awards ceremony if I win it. So get out there, ask your friends, ask your family. Please vote, I would really appreciate it. Also, in knitty news, Fluff, my beloved Fluff, the best yarn shop in Dundee, the Premier Yarnery, has got a new website, and I said I would let you all know about it. So if you've always wanted to go to Fluff, but you're nowhere near Dundee, and let's face it, most of the world isn't, and you don't happen to be passing, but you would like to get in there and see what she's got to offer, if you head over to www.fluff.co.uk, and that is FLUPH for Fluff, you can have a look at all of her goodies. She's also been doing a few periscopes during the week from the inside of her yarn shop. So if you've ever wondered what it's like to be in there, you can find out if you follow her on Periscope. She is at Fluff Shop on Periscope. I've also been doing quite a few periscopes as well, including one where I nearly got killed by a bunch of seagulls. Well, not nearly killed, they were swooping, possibly was going to get attacked. They were fighting over a piece of bread, and I was busy showing everyone the lovely beach, and then it all started kicking off, and a lot of people I think thought I had died, but I didn't. I just ran and got in the car and drove off to the beach, and there was no signal at the beach. But Periscope, for those of you that don't know, is a online live streaming app. It's owned by Twitter, and you can go in there and watch people live talking about all kinds of different stuff, and you can put messages up and interact with them. I've been doing a few kind of tutorial type things for people that they've asked for, about how to make a content calendar and some time-saving things that I use to get more stuff done. And the replay's running it for 24 hours, so you need to be kind of quick getting in there, but I will be repurposing some of them to YouTube for you all, just to help you guys out, really. I get a lot of the same questions asked about certain things, and I like to help people, like to teach people, so if there's anything that you want to know about, drop me a line and I will do you a little periscope as well. And finally, the Golden Skein, the finest purveyor of hand-dyed yarn clubs in the entire world, I can say this because it's my yarn club, is currently running a giveaway, and if you sign up to the mailing list, there is a chance to win one of the Linear Folia. The only one left is up for grabs. It will be given away to somebody who is on the mailing list. And to get yourself on there, I'll put a link in the show notes, but if you go to www.thegoldenskein.com, you'll get a little pop-up that will pop up onto your screen after about 5 seconds. Put your email address in there and you will be automatically entered into the draw, which will take place on Saturday. So there's not a lot of time, but there is an opportunity, if you're quick, to get in there and enter to win free yarns. It's basically the value of £72. So it's open worldwide, so get in there, and we do send you a few emails. They're only about yarn and they're pretty few and far between, so get in there for a chance to win. And if you haven't seen issue 87 of the Knitter magazine, which is out this month, there is a beautiful 3-page spread in the Knitter, an article all about the Golden Skein and a picture of me in the Knitter. I feel so famous. So if you haven't got that, check it out. It's lovely. Claire's written it, Claire Devine, and there's also some profiles of different dyers that we've worked with over the past 2 years. So if you want to find out about some new dyers, then that would be a good place to go as well. So as I say, to enter the competition, all you need to do is join the mailing list, and you can do that at www.thegoldenskein.com, or if you go to Facebook and put in The Golden Skein, there's a pinned post that will take you directly to it. So I think we better crack on to the interview. It's a good one. It's a good one this time, and I've had a few good ones recently. I really have, and I've been enjoying the interviews a lot. If you're wondering where the sock surgery has disappeared to for the time being, Claire's having a little blog break. She's got a lot of exciting projects on the go, and we decided to give the sock surgery a little break until September because everyone's off on holidays. And I was going to do a range of, I was going to have a holiday, but then I decided I would miss it too much, and I decided to do a range of interviews, and Amy Herzog is the latest in this series of interviews. And this is tying into the project that Louise Scully and I are undertaking to help people to make clothes that fit, Make It Fit 2015. And this is sort of kicking off some of the things that we're going to be talking about. And for those of you that don't know, Amy Herzog is a Boston-based knitwear designer and author of the book Knit to Flatter, as well as the creator of the popular Fit to Flatter tutorials. She teaches classes on creating sweaters that perfectly fit and flatter your figure all around the United States, and is passionate about ensuring all of us love to wear our hand knits. So we were straight in there to her, asking if she'd love to come and have a chat with us on the show. Her patterns have been featured in the Twist Collective, Knit Scene, and the book Knitting It Old School. You can also find her self-published designs on her website, amyherzogdesigns.com. Amy was an absolute delight to interview. She was really good fun. One of those people that you feel straight away that you can kind of banter. You know, you just get a level with people sometimes and you feel like you can start cracking jokes straight away. She was definitely like that. She was very good fun to chat to. Very positive and uplifting and knowledgeable, and definitely passionate about helping people make knitwear that fits. There's some really exciting features coming up from her offering, from her Cutom Fit team, that she'll tell you about in the interview, and we've got a great giveaway at the end. So get yourself comfy, get your knitting out. I'd recommend something chunky because it's pretty cold in Scotland today, and we'll crack on with the interview. This episode is sponsored by Yarn in the City. Yarn in the City organises the annual Great London Yarn Crawl, which is taking place this year on Saturday the 5th of September. This year's Yarn Crawl will also feature the addition of a one-day pop-up marketplace, taking place at Chelsea Old Town Hall and featuring over 30 vendors from London and around the UK. To top off the weekend, on Sunday the 6th of September 2015, Yarn in the City will be hosting author, pattern designer and technical editor Kate Atherley for 2 workshops in central London. Introduction to knitwear design and pattern writing skills. For more information and to book your tickets to these events, head over to www.yarninthecity.com. So I'm delighted to welcome Amy Herzog onto the show today. Amy is the lady behind Cutom Fit and the pattern system for making sweaters that fit everyone the way you want them to. So obviously, as part of Make It Fit, we desperately wanted to chat to Amy and get her view on things. So welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for making time in your diary. I know you've been very busy travelling for the last few weeks.
It's nice to be home.
There's nothing better than your own bed sometimes, I think.
It's true, I agree.
Lovely. So can you tell us a little bit about you as a person then? And also about how you came to be interested in yarny pursuits.
I think those two things are probably tied together for most of us in this field. As a person, I am a fidgeter. I have a trouble sitting still. I am not really good at still or doing nothing or just one thing. And so I learned to knit when I was a kid. Very young. I've been knitting for as long as I've known how to knit for as long as I can remember. And the story is that I would sort of drive my mother crazy, especially when, in the winter it wasn't nice enough to go outside. I grew up in Maine, which is quite cold. And the story is that I was driving her nuts and my grandmother said, you need to get some needles in her hands so that she will sit still. And that's that.
So how did you go then from being this little child that can't sit still with needles in her hand to an adult who still can't sit still with needles in her hand?
Yeah, that was a pretty smooth transition, really.
How did that turn into more of a business for you?
Yeah. So I stopped knitting when I was a teenager because I thought I was just tremendously cool and far too awesome to do any handcrafts. So not just knitting, right? When I was a kid, I learned how to knit and crochet and sew, both quilting and garment and embroider, and I've sort of done all of it. And I stopped doing all of that when I was a teenager, and then I picked it back up again as an adult after college. And really at that time, this was in the very early, like the late 90s, early aughts, and knitting was having this glorious little renaissance where all of a sudden, there were yarns available that hadn't been available before, or maybe they always had been and I had never known about them. But, I found a local yarn shop near the place where I worked, and they had Rowan magazines and yarns, and I was just like smitten. I loved the garments that they showed, and I wanted to make them for myself. And so really when I picked knitting back up as an adult, I was very focused on sweaters. I still live in New England, and it's reasonably chilly here, and so sweaters are kind of a year-round thing. And I wanted those pictures that I saw, and so that's sort of where I started. And I was not doing anything fiber related as a business until pretty recently. So knitting was my hobby. I worked in computer security, actually. And, the knitting sort of eventually grew out of its little hobby status into what I do full time now.
Oh, exciting. What did your former colleagues think about you leaving sort of a very unrelated field, I guess, for most people, to go into knitting full time?
Well, they had known sort of this dual life for a while. So I was working in computer security when I got when I started writing the blog series that led to the first book, Knit to Flatter, about making your sweaters fit you. And not just fit you, but make them something that you really like to wear visually, that you like the way you look in. And so they knew that I was writing a book, and they thought it was kind of cute. And they knew that I went away sometimes on weekends teaching, and they thought that was interesting. But they're very separate, right? The tech world and the creative world are pretty separate. So it was just like someone else might say they play golf on the weekends, or they do ultimate frisbee, and I knitted. And then when I started designing, the tech came into it because I wrote my husband and I together wrote a piece of software that would generate the text for my knitting patterns. So, I can put in a target set of garment measurements, and then I get a pattern in 12 sizes. And that was kind of a cool project to my colleagues, right? That it's kind of neat that you would use technology in this very unrelated, seemingly unconnected field. And from there, we sort of got the idea for Cutom Fit. And by the time we were considering launching Cutom Fit, I was like on my second book, and I was teaching most weekends, and it was really clear that I couldn't continue to do two more than full-time jobs, so that one of them sort of had to go. And I think that in the tech industry, more than other industries, leaving a more established career to try a new idea is kind of a thing people do. Most people have worked at a startup at one time or another, so I don't think it was super strange to them. I mean, the topic was maybe a little weird, but...
Oh, it sounds really exciting. So obviously you moved from your previous job into working for yourself.
Yes.
So what does a typical day look like for you?
I think this is such an interesting question. I feel like I now have 4 or 5 typical days. There's the one where there are the days when I'm traveling, which is you wake up at 6, you're in the classroom by 8:30, you're in the classroom until 5:30, you lather, rinse, repeat, where you're teaching all day. And I'm such an extrovert. Those are glorious days. I love them. I love meeting 50 new best friends and spending the day talking sweaters with them. So that's definitely one typical day. I think more often when I'm here, the day is sort of split between kind of a shocking amount of computer work, really. I think that when I left the tech industry to do a knitting job, and even a tech knitting startup, if that phrase even makes sense, I thought I would be doing a lot more knitting than I do. Most days I'm sort of in front of the computer for, 6 hours or so, answering email and doing some, work on the site, or, I don't know, writing up patterns or communicating with people about the designs that I have out or something like that. And then I spend another few hours knitting in the afternoons and evenings. There are a few days that are just knitting, but I do try to squeak them in every now and again because they're so important to my sanity.
Yeah, I think everyone thinks that you sort of lays around, not you personally, I'll just put that out there, the knitting designer sort of lays around on a hammock or a chaise longue, depending on, what kind of mood you're in, and just knit all day.
Yeah.
Most people don't, but apparently Stephen West does. He does knit all day.
It's certainly not what my day looks like. And in fact, so to keep a steadiness and level of income that's even remotely feasible, like you can't knit all of the sweaters you design, right? You can't knit all of your designs. The financials don't work out that way. So, right. So you wind up having to make many more designs than your fingers can produce. So the days when you do sort of spend all day knitting, for me at least, are much more likely to be like this series of, 7 to 12 swatches where you're creating the materials you need to create the design, and then someone else's fingers will actually make that sweater. I knit probably, I would say between 20 and 30 full sweaters in a year, in a typical year. But then there are, always between 5 and a dozen more that sample knitters are knitting. So yeah, even a typical knitting day isn't what I imagined it would be before I left tech, or before I left my old job for this one. But they're great days. I love swatching. It's so exciting. And it really concentrates the creative part of the process, I think, in a lovely way. But it's definitely different than I imagined.
So can you tell us about your creative process then, when you come to develop a new design and you're getting all your swatches together and you're working on that very concentrated little canvas?
Yeah. It's changed recently in an interesting way. Well, in a way I find interesting. I don't know. So I used to get my inspiration by watching people. I'm such a practical person that I like watching the way people interact with their clothing and things that go right and things that go wrong, and coming up with designs that will really practically work in day-to-day life. And that used to be sort of the foundation of my process. And that's still there. But since we released Cutom Fit, now the design process is different, because I can't just imagine one sweater and what it will look like in this one yarn. I have to think about design as something that will work no matter what the gauge of the yarn is, from lace weight all the way up to bulky. Because that's what you can do with Cutom Fit. Of course, you can put in your own gauge for any of the designs built into the site. So you get that design in the gauge that's appropriate to your yarn. And sometimes that just means that, maybe you're using the same yarn and you're getting a slightly different row gauge or something. But sometimes that means people are using yarns of vastly different weights. And so that has put a new lens on the design process that's really fun to explore. Like, okay, here's what this will look like in this yarn that I've chosen. Now, sanity check, what's that going to look like if it's worked at a bulky? Or if I started with a bulky, what's that going to look like when someone's using sport weight?
It sounds really interesting, but the possibilities are almost endless there, aren't they?
Yeah, it's been really fun. I think that there have been ups and downs in the designs that, that I've tried to make for the site. Some of them have not seen the light of day because I'll get through my swatching process and be really excited, and I'll build it in, and I sort of test out the designs before I start actually knitting them. So I'll generate them at a bunch of different gauges just to see what the instructions look like. And I'll be like, whoa, okay, never mind. That one will have to go to a magazine or something, because that's not going to work here.
Oh, awesome. So talking of ups and downs then, can you think about a time where maybe things didn't quite go to plan? What happened and what did you learn as a result of it?
I loved this question, by the way.
But you're allowed to be all too, you've got to be real, haven't you? It's never perfect. Loads of stuff goes wrong, and I think people like it when they hear about when things go wrong.
I know, it's so true. It's so true. I think the example of this, I think anyone who's running a small business probably has 17 answers to this question the second that they read it, right? But the one that really came to the forefront of my mind was when we launched the Maker subscription programs to Cutom Fit. So when I was designing Cutom Fit, it was really, really, really important to me to keep everything economical. Like, I don't want the fact that a knitter isn't shaped exactly the same way as Miss Average to mean that she can't get sweaters that fit, right? It shouldn't, that's not, I want to prevent that from happening. And as we were working on like just how we would roll custom fit out, practically business speaking wise, I wanted to keep it super inexpensive. So we decided to price it by the pattern. So setting up an account, a basic account is free, and storing measurements and gauge information is free. And then when you actually generate the pattern, it's $10 or $12.50, depending. Because then if someone only knits a sweater a year, they're doing it for, $10 or $12.50. And then after we released Custom Fit, there were people who were using it to make a lot of sweaters. So we had people write us, 9 months after the site launched, and they would say things like, "Oh, I'm on my 10th sweater." And I thought to myself, that's not economical at all. And so we came up with this idea of subscriptions. What if you could pay a monthly fee and then you get some amount of sweaters? And I know that's like a super long way around, but the thing that failed was that I thought to myself, oh, we can't just give them discounted patterns. Like, we have to give them more. We have to, people will want, I don't know, a gathering place or extra support and articles. And so we came up with this plan that had all this other stuff in it. And that was a failure. That's not like, people just wanted patterns at a discount because they were doing so many of them. And so what happened was that knitters said, oh, I thought the patterns would be less expensive, more less expensive this way, if that makes sense, than they are. And what happened was that we just changed the way that the subscription programs work. So I think the nice thing about being a tiny company is that when you see that you've done wrong, you can change things. And so we sort of said, okay, our bad. If that's what people are interested in, here's the new pricing tiers. You get one level where it's really aimed at someone who knits a lot of sweaters, where for $5 a month, you get 8 over the course of the year. And then we came up with another level that was not just for people who knit a lot of sweaters, but for people who like to change their mind a lot. So they don't knit a lot of sweaters, but they do want to generate a lot of patterns. And so that's an $8 a month unlimited. So that you can decide you can generate a pattern and get going. And then if you decide you want to change it to a V-neck later, you can do that without any additional cost.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Such a time suck though. Would you not just be sat there going, oh no, I've changed my mind already. I want a different neck. Oh, let's just have a look at that. Oh, I can totally see the time disappearing with that one.
It's funny. It's how I use it, when I go through ideas, I generate a bunch of patterns and look and see the differences. And, oh, I wonder how this would work with belled sleeves or, so yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of entertainment for $8 a month.
A very specific kind of entertainment.
Oh, brilliant. So taking it from that then, and things that went maybe not to plan, but you learnt from it, what's been the high point of your journey as a knitting entrepreneur so far?
I don't know if this is lame to say, but I think the fact that I'm still here is the high point. Anytime you launch something new, those first couple of years it doesn't matter how good you think your idea is, there's no guarantee you're going to make it. And, knock on wood, right? You don't want to say that things are golden. Things are certainly still very young and new and hard and not, where maybe we'd hoped they'd be, but it's still here. And that feels awesome. I love working on this job. I love doing this job. I'm so glad that I still get to.
So taking it out there now, which one thing that you know now did you wish you had known when you first picked up a ball of yarn?
I feel like I have 2 answers to that. Like, there's the business answer, which is really listen to your intuition. I wish someone had said that to me. Like, that little voice is often right, and even when they're not right, they have a pretty good point that you should listen to, and so listen to it. but the sort of personal knitter answer is that I wish I'd understood when I started out the different paths people have taken to become knitters. So I have to cop to being a kind of unthoughtful about my own craft backgrounds, right? I learned all this stuff from grandmothers and aunts and multiple people all around me for my entire childhood. And I think that I didn't realize until really just a few years ago that wasn't everyone's experience. That sounds so stupid when I say it out loud. But, I sort of thought that everyone knew sort of basically what I knew, and we all had the same path getting here. And I wish that I had realized that that wasn't true, because it would have changed the way I talked about things, changed the order in which I talked about things and did things.
I definitely agree with you on the old, if you get an idea, or if you get that little voice saying this is a bad idea, listen to it.
Listen to it. Yeah.
It is never wrong.
It's really never wrong, that voice.
So imagining then we're going to go from there to a desert island. If you were going to be marooned on a desert island and you could only take one ball or skein of yarn, what would you take and why?
Oh, I dread questions like these. I feel like someone who has like the yarn is all of my pets and my friends, and I can't possibly choose between them. Say that I like one more than the other. So I'll give you the sort of practical person answer, which is that I would take one of those mega hanks of the kitchen cotton, the dishcloth cotton, because that stuff is indestructible, and you could use it to make a fishing net, and you could use it to make, like, you just do anything that you might need to do on a desert island with that kitchen cotton. But of course, it's terrible to knit with. So if we're talking about just to knit with, I think that I would probably have to take a wool silk blend. And I'm not sure I could choose between all of the wool silk blends that I love. Maybe right now, since it's the summertime here, I would choose Harrisville Designs wool silk blend, which is like a nubby, almost tweedy, lightweight wool silk that's very nice. But that answer will change next week.
Well, obviously, it's a knitter's prerogative, isn't it? To change your mind about yarn. That's the whole point. Do you think you could make a hammock out of the kitchen cotton?
I feel like maybe you could, out of any yarn like that. It has a pretty good shot.
Cool. So then you could make your hammock and then knit in it all day. It'd be amazing.
It would be pretty cool. It's a new knitting tour. We've come up with an idea.
Yeah, we'll just dump a load of knits on a desert island with a load of kitchen cotton and see what happens. Be great. See, you can have that one for free, Amy, if you want to film that.
There's that little voice.
This is a bad idea, Amy. So taking it back to sensible, but not too sensible, because we like a bit of a laugh on the podcast. What's your favourite or go-to resource for yarn craft or business that you couldn't do without?
I'm sure everyone says this, but Ravelry is something that I just couldn't live without. I mean, I can't even count the number of times a day that I look up an information about a yarn, or I try to see, I don't know, some gauge information. Like, I even use it to look up my own old patterns to answer questions. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Ravelry is certainly a popular one. So where can the listeners find you then on the internet?
So probably the best place is my blog, which is amyherzogdesigns.com. And there are, obviously there's an RSS feed if you want to track it in whatever you use to read sites online, but there's also a way to subscribe to the blog posts by email there. And I'm on Instagram, both under our sort of company name that Lauren, our community manager, runs, which is Make Wear Love, but I'm also there as myself, as I think, this is embarrassing, Amy Herzog, or Amy L. Herzog. And so we use that, and Facebook and Twitter and so forth too. But the blog is really where news comes up. And then, of course, there's the Cutom Fit site, which is makewearlove.com.
Brilliant. I will put links to all of that in the show notes for you as well.
Thank you.
Just to make it easy, for
Yeah,
everyone to go and make their own beautifully fitting patterns and change them 50 million times before they actually cast on.
exactly.
That's me. It's totally me. Do you have any parting words for those people who are maybe thinking about getting into the industry and would like to do so?
I love this question. I think that the flip answer is think twice, just because it's a difficult industry to make a living in. But the not flip answer is to think carefully about how you want to relate to the rest of the industry. It's really easy to think about, if you're a designer, what kinds of designs you want to do, or if you're a yarny, what kinds of yarn you want to make. But I think that the best piece of advice I could give someone coming into the industry is to think carefully about where they want to fit in with the other people doing both yarn and designs and everything else that creates this industry that we're in. Think about how you want to connect to the rest of it so that you know how to make the connections and relationships that make us all stronger together.
That's a really good answer. I like that one. So let's get excited. Let's get everybody really excited. What's next for you and your business?
Well, I am working on my third book. So I don't, but that's not next because publishing takes such a long time, right? Really, what's next is that we are greatly expanding what Custom Fit can do this summer, which is really, really exciting to me. So I sort of started with the most interesting, challenging problem in sweater fitting, which is the waist and bust shaped women's sort of fitted, tailored garment. Like let's turn the complicated dial all the way up to 11, and we can get a sweater that fits well for any person's body measurements. But there are a billion other kinds of sweaters that we like to knit for a billion other kinds of people. And that's what we're starting on this summer. So sometime this fall, we will launch, we're calling them different sweater shapes. So not only will you be able to get an hourglass sweater, but you'll be able to get a sweater that's straight with no shaping from cast on to bust. You'll be able to get a tapered sweater where the cast on is smaller than the chest circumference, and an A-line sweater where the cast on is larger than the chest circumference, and that they'll work both for adult women in terms of ease, the sort of fit that's built into the site. They'll work for not only adult women, but for men and for children too. And I am so excited about that.
That could be terrible for me. Yeah, it's just like, how are you going to knit for all of them as well? I want to be knitting all of the sweaters that fit me, and now I can knit them for my kids and my enormous husband as well.
Well, the kids anyway.
Yeah. While they're still small, he's enormous. He's like 6'4", so I really don't want to be knitting him anything, frankly.
It's alone, right?
Yeah, the socks are bad enough, but yeah, not a sweater as well.
Of course, you could use thicker yarn, so I suppose.
Yeah, I could.
Socks. Yeah, I have like full disclosure. I have not knit a sweater for my husband, so but I hear people do.
Yeah, I've heard that too. But then I looked up 4-ply jumpers for men on Ravelry. There aren't many.
Yeah.
Funny old thing.
Yeah. So that's what's next.
Oh, cool. It sounds really exciting and something that would really build nicely upon what's already offered over at Custom Fit.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
So have you got, as a quick kind of throw in there at the end, have you got sort of 3 top tips for making clothes that fit for our Make It Fit people?
Yeah. So I think the first tip that I start with everyone that I work with in class or wherever is that any garment has to fit you properly in the shoulders. So start by choosing a size where the shoulder related measurements work for you. So if it's a set-in sleeve, the cross chest and the armhole depth. If it's the yoke, that's like the circumference all around your arms and the top of your chest. Or so whatever those shoulder measurements are, start by choosing a size where those work. And hand knit is such a forgiving fabric medium. It's so kind fit wise that if you can do that one shoulder fitting thing, you're 90% of the way there. So that's tip one. Tip two is don't lie to yourself about your gauge. So I think we all say this, right? I think my spin on this is that your job when you swatch is not to match a particular gauge number. That's way less important than trying to predict what your gauge will be when you sit down at the end of the day and knit on that sweater. So you can try to change your knitting technique to make the stitches be a certain size, and that might work well enough over a project the scale of mittens or something, but there's just no way that is going to work when you have sweater pieces. They're too big. There are too many stitches. So instead, when you swatch, try to knit normally without thinking about it, because that's how you're going to knit the sweater. And you can do all kinds of machinations around adjusting for a gauge that isn't quite, quote, right. But there's no way to recover from not knowing what your gauge will be. So try to make your swatch predictive of what your stitches will be. And the third tip is really not to get too stressed out about it. I think that's where many of us go off the rails in sweater knitting. We worry about making it perfect. And that's not, like, the hand knit sweater it's not really a medium for perfection, right? This isn't a tailored button-down shirt out of woven fabric where there's just no room for error. Hand knit sweaters, they're not leotards, they're sweaters. And they're made out of such a forgiving fabric that really don't get hung up on perfect. Good enough is really good enough for sweaters, especially the first few times.
That's a really good point. Thank you. They're all three of them are really good points. It depends, if your gauge is a little bit tight, if you are a bit stressed, it might turn out like a leotard. Especially if you've been lying about your gauge.
It's true.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Amy, for agreeing to come onto the show.
Thank you, Jo.
So, Amy, you've very kindly, as well as giving us all your time and some top tips for sweaters there at the end, you very kindly also offered to sponsor a giveaway for the podcast.
Yes, we'd love to give away a free month of that Maker Plus level that we discussed, where you can sort of generate as many patterns as you want.
That sounds amazing.
I hope it's fun.
It is. That's it. I'm already signed up now. That's it. I'm going off straight after this. I want to have a play with that already. So what we'll do for that then is we'll have, as we always do, a giveaway thread in the Ravelry group, and you can head on over there and enter for a chance to win a free month of Cutom Fit. Amazing. Lovely. Well, thank you very much for that, Amy, and thank you very much for offering to sponsor a giveaway as well.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
No worries. Thanks. Well, wasn't she fun? I thought she was a really great laugh. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Amy and hearing some of her top tips for making things that fit. The new Cutom Fit upgrade sounds like it's going to be really good. So if you haven't already been over there to check it out, I highly recommend you do so. I know Louise has been looking at it as well, and I'm sure she'll have some thoughts for you when we dive into the Make It Fit content proper. So I'm afraid that is all we've got time for this week. But thank you very, very much for listening. I truly appreciate you tuning in every week and spending a good 45 minutes of your time with me and other special guests. If you do have time to, just to remind you at the end, to pop over to the website and vote for the Shiny Bees podcast in the UK Podcasters Awards, I would be really, really grateful. and I will be back again next week with another exciting guest, Brenda Dane of Cast On fame. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you all have a lovely week. Happy crafting. Keep warm, my friends, and I will speak to you all again soon. Bye. You've been listening to the Shiny Bees podcast, a podcast for those who like their knitting, comedy and yarn in equally large measures. If you'd like to get in contact with me, you can do so via the blog, or I'm Shiny Bees on Ravelry, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest and Facebook. You can email me at shinybeesinfo@gmail.com. Music for this episode is provided by Music Alley, and it is Adam and the Walter Boys and I Need a Drink.
I need a drink.